Hello, you are with Astrology Beyond for another broadcast. For Astrology and Human Design, we are with Daniela Vitanova. Hello, Daniela. What will we talk about today? The viewers want you to announce it.
Let's talk about children, one of the most important topics overall. The way to properly approach their needs and desires, and generally how to support their potential to be realized through the lens of human design and astrology.
You wanted to announce it because you have experience as a mother of 3 children, and you suggested that we present this topic to our viewers.
That's right. My children were the main motivator for me to start studying astrology, because before that, I felt like I couldn't fully understand them. Somehow, if I was in a good relationship with one of my children, the other 2 would be left out. And that's how I realized I wasn't doing something right. And that's how your search in astrology began. It started because you were constantly looking for a reason within yourself, thinking you weren't a good enough parent. But it turned out that each child has different needs. I was trying to treat all 3 of them the same way with the aim of being fair, but it can never be like that. So, actually, it's more accurate to say that each child is unique, but they are not equal in the exact same way, and that's why. No matter how many children you have, you can love them all equally, but in reality, the relationship with each one of them is different. When you understand the nature of your child and the person in front of you, you actually respect them. You show respect to their nature. You love them in a real way. Absolutely. And actually, astrology helped me to truly understand their specific needs. Everyone needs something fundamentally different, meaning one of my children perceives me as an authority and doesn't want me to be their friend, while the other child is the exact opposite. They want to play with me, to do things together, to spend time. Time or to hold hands, which has nothing to do with the needs of the other child, who needs completely different things. And in this way, by understanding the needs of each one of them.
I actually managed to delve into their inner authenticity and basarjob. This is very valuable because it lowers the expectations on parents, as every parent, for one reason or another, has some expectations of themselves. What should they be like as a parent? What should they be according to society as a parent? What is right and what is wrong? In reality, it actually removes a great burden and responsibility. Astrology was a tool that lifted this burden from me, and the moment I realized that
every child sees me in an absolutely completely different way. Much about this, and it's not your responsibility to change that. Absolutely yes. That is, there is an acceptance and agreement that every child will see you in this way. Now, with children, every child up to at least 3 years of age is symbiotically connected to the mother, meaning it perceives itself as a part of her. Because of this, the moon is very important up to this age, and the sun comes into play a little later, meaning the theme with the father, and in psychology, the father plays a role after the age of 3. So, one thing we look at in a child's chart is the moon, the sign of the moon, the house of the moon, as well as the aspects that this moon makes, in order to understand how the child views the mother, how it perceives her. It is very important to clarify that this is the child's subjective perception. In other words, the mother may not actually possess these characteristics, but the child perceives her in exactly this way. Accordingly, the sign of the moon will show what the needs and requirements of this child are. That is, the mother. In fact, astrology for children or horoscopes for children are not done with the aim of changing the child or something in them. If the parent doesn't, but you manage to, it is for the parents themselves, meaning the approach of the parents towards the child, towards each child individually. No matter how many children there are, you will have a different approach to each one of them.
changes in upbringing and change in parenting, that is, if you understand how to relate to your child, you don't need to teach them astrology. You don't need to teach them about Hell and Z. You just need to know how they function. whether you look at their moon or see their chart in the design. In the same way, we work with 4 types and there are 12 profiles. There are 12 digestive systems. Each child needs to take in food in a different way, right? This is a very big topic for every mother. How should I feed my child?
Yes, I just want to add something here. Before I even got acquainted with human design, I had a big issue regarding nutrition. I am a Taurus sun, and for me, food is very important. I have always cooked a lot. I insisted that my children eat in a certain way. But one of them, who is a manifestor, completely rejected what I was doing for him and accordingly ate in a way that was contrary to my way of feeding. I remember back then, you explained to me about the digestive systems and told me, don't worry about it, he has the most modern digestive system. Don't stress over it. I remember that was the moment when a certain weight and responsibility lifted off me, and I truly understood that this really works. In this case, it's not so important what happens with the child. We always look at the parent. If the parent is calm regarding their child, if they are in harmony with themselves as a parent, then the child is completely okay. So here, truly, human design and astrology are more to support, but the parents are absolutely the parents. They are for parents to understand their children. I can have a designer for the whole.
Yes, the child is born as it is and it acts as it acts, right? The more important thing is for the essence of those around it to understand how it acts and how it functions. Absolutely. So nutrition is very important because human design explains that in the first year there is the greatest so-called cognitive development for a child from 1 to 7 years. And actually, nutrition greatly supports this cognitive development so that the child can start developing their abilities to the maximum capacity from a young age. There are children for whom it is beneficial to eat because they have what is called a cave digestive system. There are children for whom it is more beneficial, as it was with your child, to adapt in a modern way. They are designed to live in this more modern world and with these more modern foods. Even if they seem to be for such and the unhealthy pouring in society and so on, there are children for whom the timing of eating is important. It's not important what the date is, but rather the circumstances are important. For some, the temperature is important. Let's say there are children who manage to eat cold food, or at best it is cooled or at room temperature. And these are such small things, but actually they help a lot for the child to be nourished, not only on a physical level. The psychological level of development comes, Komoro, after the age of 7, and that's why it has long been said that upbringing in the first 7 years is crucial, because the strongest upbringing is actually the physical upbringing related to nutrition. In children, it can be called physical conditioning, as from a young age, since people and our parents understand our nature, we are nutritionally conditioned. By the way, children, as I observe my own children and knowing what type their digestive system is,
I see that they actually, if outside of your perspectives, right, if I don't decide for something to be there, imposed from my own thinking, they actually eat in the way they are naturally designed to. For example, my eldest son, that is, with this blood type system, which is more cross-type. And actually, he eats almost the same foods, right, when he likes them. And when I understood, did he know this freedom of his? Okay, this is something that maintains his uniqueness. And I understand it, right? I already understand the meaning, and I understand the meaning for the other children who want to eat at night. For every parent, right, the ultimate nighttime is somehow terrible, even though it's not healthy, it's harmful, but for example, it appeals to them, it activates them, and actually understanding the ultimate for a child, this is perhaps the most important part because the ultimate for children is equal to life, it is equal to the connection with the mother. And maybe I would like to share about one of my children because with him I had the most, perhaps, the difficult topic was with eating, meaning through eating there was a conflict in our relationship and the fact that he ate in a way I didn't understand. There was a period when he started hiding food and as a result we were constantly in a very strained relationship. And actually, at the moment when I started to understand him, but it was an internal matter, meaning it's not about saying I won't comment on what he eats, because let him do whatever he wants. Children sense everything beneath the surface. To have something against it, even if he doesn't express it, the moment I was completely okay with it, understanding that he can eat, that was one of the tools that relieved this great responsibility, that nothing would happen to him if he eats the way he wants to eat. And then actually our relationship changed. It improved many times over, with my understanding, meaning the child sensed it beneath the surface. Not one food. How much does one food do for children? Food is extremely important. You will push them to eat what they don't want to eat, or you will forbid them to eat what they still want to eat. It's really extremely important through eating. The connection with children becomes very strong.
The price is for one baby, one thing that it associates with its mother, because through food you connect with the mother, and children who have eating disorders or people who have eating disorders, whether it's bulimia or anorexia. Actually, this shows some strong themes related to the mother. Let's say anorexia, you want to reject food. That is, it's a subconscious way to reject the mother, let's say, because you associate food with your mother on a very unconscious level.
These are psychological mechanisms that are very unconscious in a person. That's why it's good to support them from a very early age. We support them in this way, and astrology really shows the sign of the moon. In what way it is good for the child to be nourished, but the film together also has an even more comprehensive view. That's why these two systems really help each other a lot. To mention a very good combination specifically for nutrition, and not only that, in many other aspects, we can understand children according to astrology through the sun and the moon. We can see the connection with the mother and father, at least the needs we talked about. The moon, that is in the earliest age, here is what is needed. And it is very important. This depends on the sign, whether the moon is in an air sign, an earth sign, meaning whether the child needs more physical security or more communication with the mother, or more creativity and play if the moon is in a fire sign, or if it's in a water sign, the lunation may require more emotional connection, meaning more physical contact, cuddling, and so on. And the interesting thing is that in many cases of conflict between the understanding of parents, the child's need, and from there actually something doesn't align, meaning one doesn't understand the needs of the other. Naturally, this is the parent, because they are in the position to be responsible for seeing what the child needs. So it really is a very good way and mechanism to get closer to this authenticity, because in this way it is nurtured by its full potential.
The topics are really about moving away from generalizations like what is beneficial in upbringing, what is beneficial as 1,000 for one child is this example with my eldest son, right? He has a more selective digestive system. He is not designed to eat a super diverse diet. It is more specific to give him certain foods. In fact, this is exactly the opposite of what is beneficial for him. And so on. The attitude in school, for example, human design actually shows how children are designed to learn and absorb information. There are children who have a very strong right hemisphere of the brain. The right hemisphere is the creative and artistic one. This happens with children whom you can immerse in a textbook and to study and write plans and write a word 1,300 times to remember its meaning. This is not their way to extend. Actually, they are quite creative. In fact, they have attention problems in school, and this attention problem comes from these children who actually have a right hemisphere, and they are not designed for the school system, which is made for children with a left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere is strange to focus, right? It learns sharply to remember, to repeat, to repeat, to repeat, until it starts. The right hemisphere listens once, it absorbs and perceives all the information. There is no need to burden it by making it go home and do homework, and to make the child study again. It has already stored all the information. He advised parents with children who have a right brain dominance to simply tell their children to listen in school, and that's it. There's no need to make them study at home or stare at a textbook. These are children who learn through their environment and need a practical setting where they can be present, listen to the teacher, and thus retain information when they are in that environment. For them, it might be more difficult to be online. Sometimes, even when it was Christmas online, it could be quite challenging for them. They need that socialization, they form connections, while children who are strongly left-brained. Another problem for them is the pressure that they must excel in every subject. Let's say for our children, it's strange for them to be interested in only certain topics, to focus on one or two subjects where they invest all their energy. The truth is they can be very thorough, but at other times they will be bored at school, which will lead to discipline problems, and they will constantly want to do something different, right? And this is very important. I have acquaintances who understand thousands of loans, who are teachers in Plovdiv, and she understands chemistry. She actually gives her children the freedom to learn in different ways. And this is really valuable for children in such an environment. And indeed, children learn best when you understand them. Actually, every child just seeks to be understood, and this is true for every person. So everything starts from childhood. And in these first 7 years, speaking about a person's development, during these 7 years, a person primarily develops, and there is the physical development. That's why nutrition is most important then. In other words, how the child is fed. In the next phase, between 7 and 14 years, this is the phase of emotional development. It is governed by the so-called prenatal Venus in the vessel. At this stage, the child's emotional reactions are formed, whether the child will be impulsive and explosive or whether they will emotionally close off. This is the moment when the child is taught how to express emotions in a healthy way. It is actually very important to provide this healthy atmosphere where the child can feel and express emotions without being restricted. And then puberty from 14 to 20 years old, the third 7-year stage. This is the phase of mental development. And actually this is, let's say, the last stop where the child is already forming and fully develops. These are, yes, that is, here it becomes very easy after these 20 years for a person to easily lock themselves into their patterns, and they are already locked here on a mental level. And mental prejudices are born, mental ones are born, so to speak, beliefs, right? And actually, indeed, here are the biggest barriers for a person, right? So actually, that's why the first years are the most important. And actually, the people and children who are open to self-knowledge, the children who study astrology, the children who go into human design, constellations, whatever it may be, it takes them much more time and effort after the age of 20 to return and restart themselves, to treat the functions of the cut towards their natural nature if they have strayed too far from their nature. So it really is the most important thing in those first years.
Oh yes. I just want to add something specific about astrology. When a child's horoscope is considered, it is based on the natal chart of the child. It is very important to make the adjustments, because many parents worry and say, no, I don't want to know. Or if something bad happens to the child, they think that actually a natal chart is made for the potential of the child. That is, to understand what is good, to understand where their strengths are, right? To rather support them with this. To say whether this will happen to them, yes. Really what we are looking at is mainly the relationship of the parents with the child and their potential, because very often the child's potential is neglected in favor of the parents' ambitions, meaning they have their own worldview which they decide to impose on the child. And this is where the big conflict arises, the child's resistance and the conflicts that emerge. That is, if the parents can understand what the child wants to do, and even if this is in total opposition to their thoughts, desires, and ambitions, it would be the best for the child. And then, in fact, the connection between parent and child is created. Every parent has a very strong desire for the child to be like the parent, for the child to be
inspired by the parent's example, but very often the child is an entirely separate individual from the parent, and in fact, there is no comparison. That's exactly how it is. How was it, this constitutional idea? that children belong to themselves, resemble life, not given to the parents. In fact, there is this notion that the parent owns the child, exactly, and the child must obey and listen to the parent.
To a large extent, the unfulfilled potential of parents is transferred onto the child, and children are often burdened with the weight of fulfilling their parents' desires, even though it is not their own. It's no coincidence that when they reach a certain age, they might say, "Actually, I don't want to deal with this at all." They go in a completely different direction. This is the moment when they realize they are not on their own path. So both systems, human design and astrology, aim to assist parents in the best and most appropriate upbringing of their children, so that they truly follow their own path, because children are not our possessions. We are here solely to love them and support them on their journey. And we may not agree with everything they do, but that's part of the great cosmic universal joke. It's always the children who come to us that are our greatest teachers. Personally, my children are my greatest teachers, and because of them, I started to pay attention to what I do, and I am extremely grateful. Because through them, I can actually understand myself. To a large extent, I understood certain traits of my character, my actions, and so on, precisely thanks to the exchange. With them, I have my relationships with them.
They provide a very big mirror. For example, now some parents, let's say, can be energetic, and in human design, manifestors, manifesting generators. These are people who are designed to be operating at much higher speeds, to be initiators, to be active, and they have a child who is a projector. And for those who don't know, a projector is a non-energy type. Projectors are good as consultants. They are good at directing the process, but they are not here to be worker bees. They are here only to guide, meaning they are not designed to run, to sprint, to exercise, to be active. From a parent's perspective, they might seem quite lazy, which can easily be judged and misunderstood. In fact, the nature of which projector children is quite specific, especially if both parents are energy types like generators. For example, I have two projectors at home, and the dynamic with them is truly special. Moreover, projectors themselves are like an egg type, and they provide really good feedback. Yes, exactly, my two children are projectors, and from them I really receive the best feedback. They are here more to observe the world around them and to provide feedback and optimize processes. I always compare them to coaches of a sports team. You know, they stand on the sidelines and watch everyone on the field who is running and playing, and they are good at just guiding the processes. You know, like a director, that's how it is. Projectors are a new type, an emerging type, about 250 years old, and it's still actually difficult for the world to understand them, and on some level even to accept them. You know, there's still a need for time for them to be integrated into society. We are used to idealizing manifestors. Generally, manifestors have been at the top of the hierarchy in the world for the last 10,000 years. They have been our role models. And the people who start, move, and act, they don't stop at anything and can influence all the people around them. They can impact entire tribes. Most parents unconsciously raise their children like this because they were brought up the same way. It's an endless chain. It's based on ignorance. The reality is ignorance. The whole issue is that we are not familiar with the mechanisms of things. And actually, the leadership of the manifesto has been displaced for the past 2 centuries, and now projector leadership is emerging. And that's why psychotherapy, consulting, mentoring, and coaching were born. These are projector-style ways of leading, and they are much more oriented towards the individual personality. The manifestor leads the people behind them and is not concerned with individualities. This is manifested, but the projector here sees each day individually in Kapweb because we are in the age of Aquarius, dear observations. It is related to individualism, to understand each person individually. And that's why we cannot say if one rule is generally right for every person. Everyone is a different universe with different rules, with different laws. And that is the goal of the two systems?
They often overlap, meaning when you open a natal chart, there is also the design chart.
Oh yes, it doesn't become confusing.
They regularly help each other. And in this way, a very complete picture of a person is seen, whether it's a child, an adult, a couple, or a partnership relationship. The two systems truly support each other in this absolutely.
So we encourage viewers not to be afraid to understand the people around them and their children. And again, we say this is not a crystal ball that we hand over. We are not saying what will happen to the child. We are simply describing how they function, what their needs are, how they best interact with their environment, and what they require. For example, there are children for whom the design shows that it's not necessary to push them to study and complete higher education. These are the natural talents. They need very little to be able to, yes, to take a certain direction. There are other children who need more security, more investment in their education. In other words, every child is different, right? So feel free to come for personal consultations with Daniela Vitanova for Astro-Psychology. She views astrology through a very psychological lens. That's why for me, with human design analysis, write in the comments and questions. Feedback powers, and until next time,